But as we shift into Mufasa 3 and helping people to understand how they put Mufasa 1 and Mufasa 2 together to get a fully operational, IPO highway,
Yep.
I think that how I also hear that is inside of the leadership development space, we swirl all over the place.
Yep.
In terms of how we start to think about what leadership excellence is.
Yep.
We swirl all over the place and never are articulate in a holistic way with the people of our organization around what goes in this box. Right.
Yep.
We're forever stuck in this world called what's the flavor of the month? Let's spray and pray. Let's use this the shiny penny and start to have everybody kind of go through this in the hopes that that's what goes in box number one. So the other perspective of this single source of truth is that when you take a look inside of the leadership development space and getting to your fully operational IPO highway, I think you really have to work hard to get clarity on what performance actually looks like for your leaders at different levels. Do you know what I mean, Vid?
Yeah, totally, exactly. And I think that there's a reason why that swirl happens, right? Even kind of, when you look at it, even beyond leadership, analytics per se, Reg, that you'll find that a lot of times the industries where analytics have been applied in a very clear and direct fashion to drive outcomes predictably is that input area is not as confusing and as complex. There are few variables to track. There's fewer sources of information to source that data from, analyze it, and output it, right? Whenever that input world is complex, that's when the swirl starts. And that's why it's so important that before you get stuff into that IPO highway, right? The first piece, the input, that you understand what you're putting in there, and you understand why you're putting it in there, and what the outcomes could be, and how to action those outcomes, and does that really matter to your business or not?
I think when we use this phrase called single source of truth, it sounds pretty holy grailish.
Oh yeah,
serious, kind of stuff. But
it's made upwards of $80 billion for consulting companies. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And so it's like maybe we shouldn't use that phrase, but having clarity. Having a practical answer to what does excellence look like for our leaders in an evidence-based way, so that you can if you don't have an answer to this, you're not going to have a fully operational IPO
Absolutely
highway.
Yeah.
And I think that what I would also say is I don't know what the $80 billion means in terms of, the single source of truth consultancy. But what I can speak to is that inside of the training and development or the learning and development space, it is a $400 billion industry.
Oh, yeah.
And depending upon what source you quote, 25 to 30% of that 400 billion are assigned to leadership development and organization development.
Correct.
What that means, folks, is people trying to tell you something about what goes into this leadership box right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we get poor results.
Oh, absolutely. Less than 10% of CEOs say that they're building effective programs for leadership development. 25% of everybody who's gone through that IPO highway supposedly say that it's effective, which means that what's the converse of that? 90% of the CEOs are not saying that it's benefiting their organizations, and 75% of people who go through that $25 billion process that you were talking about, Reg, are saying it doesn't really have any outcome for them. That's what that means. Yeah.
And so, just kind of, really quickly here, I kind of started it with the end in mind. This box is so important to Mufasa 3, leadership to business impact analytics, because you do have to take accountability for helping all of your leaders inside of your organization, the supervisor, operational team leaders, these service leaders, those who are leading all or a piece of the customer service experience, your sales leaders who are building books of business and generating revenue for you inside of territories or districts, whatever you call them. And number 4, your senior leaders, those providing the directioning and decisioning for functions in the overall organization. You have to be able to start filling this box right here with an answer to, what does excellence look like? And you cannot answer that with a definition from the past. You have to move forward with a more progressive model, because what we know about exceptional leadership is that it is not just about growing strength of the leader from their ability to think and drive. I myself am a leader. I have to continually work on my ability to think and drive for myself and for the people that I work with and for my business Rejuvi. But it is not just my ability to build my think to drive capability. It is this other butterscotch piece, right? Which is how do I run my business? And how do I take those practices and build Rejuvi into the future while I'm sustaining Rejuvi in all that she's accomplished thus far? This think to drive continuum and this build to sustain continuum are the pieces that help us to understand what goes inside of the IPO highway. And so as we think about this Mufasa 3, leadership to business impact analytics, and helping people to understand the simple elegance of our message, that is, you can have a fully operational IPO highway. It's doable.
It's doable, and anybody can. Like I said, it doesn't have to be by chance. It can be by design, and because it was intended that way.
I love that. It doesn't have to be by chance. It doesn't have to be by chasing a shiny penny, and it certainly doesn't have to be spending the 25 to 30% of the 400 billion that gets very poor results on an annual basis from businesses across the globe. We can take our time to define excellence here, put it through the analytics process in order to connect it to outcomes. Because again, what we want to do is your fully operational IPO highway should do 4 things for you. Number 1, it should answer the question called, when you improve all or a part of this think to drive continuum right here, what business impact did it generate? And that business impact should be answered by people outcomes, operational outcomes, and value outcomes. The second thing that your fully operational IPO highway should do for you is start to get you involved in a discussion around, if these are the outcomes that we want, how much more think to drive capability are we going to actually need so that you can start to prepare your leaders? The third thing that your IPO highway should do for you is it should answer the question called, when we help our team leaders, service leaders, sales leaders, and senior leaders to run their business in both a build to the future and sustain
current state,
defense, protect what we've already accomplished. When we do those things, this outer piece, butterscotch piece of our model here, what happens to business outcomes? And the fourth thing that your IPO highway should do is say, if these are the business outcomes that we actually want, then how much more of this capability are we going to actually need, That is what a fully operational highway should be able to do for you. 1, 2, 3, 4.